Good morning, Ajahn. Sorry, good morning, Bhante, Akaliko. Welcome to the Buddhist Society of Victoria. So may I just give a brief introduction to Bhante Akaliko. He has been ordained in the Theravada Buddhist traditions, and he has been practicing Buddhist for many years, since his teens year, I believe. And he went forth in 2016 with Ajahn Brahm in the Bodhinyana Monastery. And his long-term teacher has been Ajahn Sujato, whom he is staying with for a long period of time at the monastery at the other end of the world in Sydney. Bhante Akaliko has been a spiritual director of the Buddhist Council of New South Wales. No, he sat as a director, I think.
On the board.
On the board.
If only I was the director. Oh.
No, sorry. Bhante has sat on the board in the Buddhist Council of New South Wales, as well as a founding founder of the Little Dust Foundation, and also a founder of the Rainbow Buddhist community. So Bhante now is doing some traveling and and spreading the Dhamma in regional and remote Buddhist communities. So this is a brief one, and Bhante may wish to talk a little bit more himself and share his wisdoms and Dhamma with us. Thank you very much, Bhante. And just a few other matters in regards to the BSV. The BSV AGM will be held on the April 28th. And just a reminder that the nomination will close at 5 p.m. on 13 April. All positions in the committees are open for nominations. Please feel free, male and females are encouraged to nominate whoever you think are suitable to run the positions. And please be sure that, or please check that the proposal, the seconder, and the person that you're nominating satisfy the conditions for eligibility. If you're not sure, please talk to the committee members or some of the ex-committee members. They will be able to explain to you. I remind, nomination closes at 5 p.m., 13 April. Please, all male and all females are encouraged to apply. And the coming events for the monthly lay discussion group is held today at 12:30. It will be led by Dr. Jaya and Satish Vimala Surya. Have I got the name right? Vimala Jiva, sorry. My apology. The Kaya Mita cleaning was supposed to be planned for next week. Unfortunately, it clashed with the nice celebrations of the Sri Lankan New Year and the Thai New Year. So as such, we won't be having a Kaya Mita next Sunday. Instead, we would like to do some cleaning and some mowing of the lawn. Unfortunately, it's a little bit raining and wet. But later on, hopefully, if there's no rain, if someone would like to help with the mowing, we will be very much grateful, as well as a little bit of cleaning too as well. Also, for next Sunday, Singala and the Thai New Year, please bring some of your local delicacy to share with the community for lunchtime. For the weekly teaching program, Monday night, Bhante Akaliko will lead the Monday night meditations. Tuesday, Sandy Kapki, who has just returned from overseas trip, will resume teaching on a Tuesday night. The Make Meditation Healthy Habits is ongoing, and I've just been advised that for Tuesday, Venerable Jayasara, who's from the Vimika Hermitage, New South Wales, Venerable will be leading the Tuesday night 7 p.m. meditations. On Thursday night 7 p.m., Brother Fab Hai from Plum Village, Sydney will lead that night meditations. And these are the healthy habit sessions which are going on from Monday to Thursday. The other days will be the usual monastic which are very popular as well. The New Day, New Mind meditation group, Ajahn Nando will sit in the room from 6 to 6:30 on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And the online guided meditations on Friday night will be led by Ajahn Sadhuru on Not Self. So the rest, I think I should be quite normal, as usual, and I will pass to Savitri to request for the teachings and taking of the refuges. Thank you.
Mayam Bhante, Tisarnena Saha Pancha Silani Yachama, Dutiyampi mayam Bhante, Tisarnena saha pancha silani yachama, Tatyampi mayam Bhante, Tisarnena saha pancha silani yachama.
Very good. So this is the request for the 3 refuges and the 5 precepts, and we begin by reciting the homage to the Buddha. Here at the BSV, do we chant together or do you follow? We chant together. Okay, saves time, doesn't it? Okay, so we'll start with the Namo Tassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa. Buddhang saranang gacchami. Dhammang saranang gacchami. Sanghang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. Panatipata veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Adinadana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Kame sumichachara veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Musawada veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Sura meraya majjapamadhatthana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Imani pancha sikkhapadani silena sugatim yanti. Silena bhoga sampada. Silena nibbuttim yanti. Tasma silang visodaye. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Very good. So please keep these precepts for your well-being and the well-being of others and as your vehicle to Nibbana. Next, we are doing the itipiso, the recollections of the Buddha, recollection of the Dhamma, and recollection of the Sangha. So these are the first of the anussatis, the recollections, and these things are not just something to tick off on our ceremony. This is something that really has the potential to very deeply inspire our minds and to lead to beautiful states of joy and happiness in the Dhamma. And so these recollections, so we're doing it in Pali. Hopefully you also know the meaning of the words. That's when it becomes very powerful. So if you're unclear on the meaning of the words, I think they're up on the screen above me. And these recollections are very powerful things. So never treat them just as part of a ritual. Really understand very deeply the meaning of these words. These anussatis, the Buddha said, inspire joy in the mind. The joy can deepen and become bliss, and that bliss draws the mind into samadhi, and that samadhi is what gives rise to wisdom. This is why we include them at the beginning of our ceremonies, at the beginning of our activities, because they have such a powerfully uplifting effect on our mind. And that's why we chant them. Okay, are we ready? Iti piso bhagava araham samma sambuddho vijacharana sampano sugato lokavidu anuttaro purisa dhamma sarati sattha deva manusanang Buddho Bhagavati Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Sanditiko Akaliko Ehipasiko Opanahiko Pachatang Veditabo Vinyuhiti Supatipano Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho Ujupatipano Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho Nyayapatipano Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho Samhijipatipano Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho Yadidan Chattari Purisa Yugani Atta Purisa Pugala Esa Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho Ahuneyo Pahuneyo Dakineyo Anjali Karaniyo Anuttarang Punya Ketang Lokasati. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So what are we going to do? We're going to do English or in Pali for the Metta Sutta today. Can we see a show of hands? English. Okay, very good. So there's several different versions of the English Metta Sutta around the world. Let's see. Okay, so I might have to read this one along with you. And this is such another really beautiful opportunity for us, right? These aren't just words. This is wisdom that we can take into our hearts. How to live a good life, how to be a good person, how to develop a mind full of love. And this is one of my favorite suttas to chant. I don't get to do it in English very often, so please lead me in this English version of the Karaniya Metta Sutta. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, not busy with duties, and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm, and wise and skillful, not proud or demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove, wishing in gladness and in safety. May all beings be happy. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, the great or the mighty, medium, short or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be happy. Let none deceive another. or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another, even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child. So with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downward to the depths, outwards and unbounded, free from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness. One should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. By not holding to wrong views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Very beautiful sutta. Of course, you know why the Buddha taught it, right? Why did the Buddha teach the Metta Sutta? Why did the Buddha teach metta? Why did the Buddha teach love? It's because we have minds of hate. We have minds of ill will. Do you? Yeah, people in this room? Let's see, show of hands. Who's got a mind of hate and ill will? Yeah? I was going to say, because you know what, if you said no, then you should definitely be giving this Dhamma talk, because that would mean that you are a non-returner. A non-returner. A non-returner is one of the higher stages of the enlightenment process. So someone who has reached a non-returner stage is just one small step away from becoming fully enlightened as an arahant. To give you an understanding of that stage of the path, I often use this analogy of going up in a spaceship onto the moon. So we're all here down on Earth, reading the instructions, right? We are reading the instructions on how to build a spaceship that's going to take us all the way to the moon. So we're reading the instructions. Some people have started to build that spaceship. Building a spaceship is not easy, right? It's difficult. And then we need a lot of energy to lift off and to take us up and push us through the atmosphere of Earth, get beyond the gravity of Earth and into the dark nothingness of space. And that energy is where I think most of us, hopefully, are directing our efforts on the spiritual path, which is to get to that first stage of enlightenment, the lowest stage of enlightenment, still a very high stage of stream enterer or sotapanna. So you imagine in this journey to the moon, all of our energy is directed at getting out of the pull of the lower defilements and the lower samyojanas, the fetters. So if we can do that, if we can kind of get up into outer space, just push past the Earth's orbit, then that would be stream entry. And stream entry means we don't fall back into Earth's orbit, right? We don't fall back into lower states of woe in terms of rebirth. We've got 7 lifetimes maximum before we attain full enlightenment. And so at that stage, there's some things that are given up completely, like identity view, the belief in rites and rituals. And we still have a lot more to do. We have a lot of work left. It's not finished, right? Still remaining at that stage, even for someone on the lowest rung of enlightenment, is ill will, sense desire, let alone the higher fetters of things, like very subtle things like conceit, desire for bodies, and so on. So, continuing that analogy, the spaceship is moving towards the moon. A once returner still has ill will. What does this tell you? This tells you it's a very strong defilement, right? So, and only when that spaceship touches down on the moon, let's say that's the once returner stage, the anagami stage, although the non-returner stage, the once returner stage, they abandon a lot of this ill will, a lot of this sense desire, but it's not given up completely until that non-returner stage. I'm getting very confused with the enlightened stage. It's not given up until that non-returner stage, and that's touchdown on the moon. And then the next step is just that one small step out onto the surface of the moon, which is arahantship. So here we are on planet Earth, a long way from the moon, right? Still reading the instructions, still trying to come to terms with the idea of a spaceship that can take us away from these defilements. And it's a long journey. Very few people have gone to the moon, right? Very few people get enlightened. So it's normal and natural that we have some hate, right? That we have some ill will, that we have some anger, some irritation. This is normal, right? It's much better, as most of you did just before, to admit that we have it, to see it clearly in our minds when it is there, to know it, to understand it. So many Buddhists that I've met, regrettably, think that just merely by being a Buddhist, they have somehow magicked away the defilement of hate, right? I do metta meditation, I chant the Metta Sutta, and then they go out and they're mean to the bus driver. Or they go home and they get angry with their partner. Or they treat the waiter at the restaurant badly. Or they secretly hate or openly hate all those politicians, right? So this is our job. Our job is to work with these defilements in our own minds. It's so easy for us to pretend that they're not there. I'm a good person. I'm a Buddhist. You look at these beautiful statues of the Buddha, so peaceful, so calm, so kind. And we think, I'm just like that. This is called spiritual bypassing, where we go around the work that we really need to do. And so it's so important for us to admit, yes, these things are here in my mind, to see them clearly, to understand them. If we're going to get over them, eradicate them, then we need to know when they're there, how they arise, how they disappear. I'm just remembering, sometimes I give these talks about dealing with difficult people. This is another way that we kind of outsource our defilements. People will say, oh, I've got so many people who need to come along to that. And they tell their friends, oh, you should go to that talk about dealing with difficult people. They tell their partners or their children, go to that talk. And it's so interesting to think that it's the other people who are difficult, right? It's not me. I'm the one who's easy to get along with. We're all difficult people in other people's lives. We're all people who have these defilements in our minds. This is why the Buddha so frequently taught hate, where it comes from, how to get rid of it. And so that's what I'm going to talk about a little bit today. We think about ill will, hate, anger. This is kind of a spectrum, right? We were talking about it yesterday with my friends Yasmin and Frank. We're talking about how irritation, mild irritation, is a form of ill will, right? We can think about it, these very kind of small aversions that we have. The Buddha talked about the anusayas, the underlying tendencies, and we have patigha, this kind of like aversion, this kind of pushing back against, not liking something. This is where it begins, right? And then might get a little bit of kind of like dislike, irritation, mild irritation, strong irritation, annoyance. Another layer could be like, really, really discernible ill will, not liking. Ill will is like a form of hate, right? We're starting to get a little bit more entrenched, right? Something like anger, which is bad, is a bit more spontaneous, right? It arises usually because of a particular reason, right? Someone cuts you off in traffic, you get angry. It's a bit more spontaneous. But when we're starting to get into hate, resentment, cruelty, malevolence, thoughts of harm, hurting others, this is beginning to get a bit more entrenched, right? A bit more deeply imprinted in our mind. But it doesn't start that way, does it? It starts all the way back at that irritation, right? That aversion. This is why we have to be so careful. All those people starting wars, they didn't just start off at the war stage, right? They had to start somewhere back. All those grumpy, irritable, older people, they didn't start like that either, did they? Yeah? Drop by hateful drop by irritated drop, over and over again, inclining the mind towards this state over and over again, drop by drop, that little pot of hate gets filled. Our thoughts stain the mind. And this is why we need to be so careful with our own mind, that we don't give rise to more and more hate, more and more ill will. This is the point, by the way, of doing some meditation, right? When you sit down, you have to develop mindfulness. Mindfulness is information gathering, data, knowledge of what's going on. You see, this is the point of mindfulness, you see your mind. And it's confronting, right? You see thoughts of ill will coming up into your mind, and thoughts of hate, thoughts of cruelty, what you'll do to get that person back in your office, that annoying person, how you can cause them some trouble, right? Make their life really difficult, yeah? Or you think about how you hate that person and how you would like them to just go away forever. These are thoughts that people have. These are thoughts that people have told me, and surprisingly, they're normal thoughts, right? These are thoughts that people have. 9 out of 10 people, I remember reading a psychology report, 9 out of 10 people have thoughts about harming others. How many people in this room have we got, right? Look around. And so this is something which I find very interesting, and that gap between somehow the way we think about ourselves and the actual quality of our mind is something that as brave Buddhists we need to investigate, and we need to bridge that gap. And it takes work, it takes effort, it takes a lot of time, because we're undoing some very, very strong conditioning, some very deep-rooted fetters. And that's why even the stream enterer still has hate. You know, it's still there. It's very strong. So we need some strategies. We need some solutions, right? One thing I want to acknowledge is that minds of ill will and hate feel good, right? We enjoy them. If there wasn't this enjoyment, we wouldn't indulge in them. Some of that enjoyment is a feeling of power, right? You are the judge, the jury. You're in the echo chamber of your mind. You're completely correct. 100% right. You are the one who is good. They're the ones who are bad, right? And so we feel very empowered by this mind of ill will. It's a really strong energy, right? It's quite invigorating. You see people become quite animated when they've got some ill will, right? It's bubbles, boils inside you. And the Buddha actually used this simile of a boiling bowl of water. Boiling, bubbling, it's hot, it's agitated. And this is what it's like inside us, all that energy bubbling through us. So we feel some enjoyment with this mind. It's intoxicating. So the Buddha said we need to understand the enjoyment of things. We also need to understand the drawbacks. And then we need to understand the escape. And so with ill will, hate, anger, there are so many drawbacks, but we don't often think about them. We enjoy these minds a little bit too much, right? When you do come and sit down in meditation, you actually see the drawbacks. Like you don't get any peace, right? You try to sit meditation with a mind of ill will, that bubbling, boiling energy in your mind. It's very far from peace. It's very far from tranquility. It's very far from more positive states of mind, like joy or happiness or love, right? Very far. And yet some people will spend their entire meditation ruminating, hating, thinking about those people they dislike, getting revenge in their mind. Yeah? So if we're not careful, you'll completely destroy our peace. Worse, it'll continue to add more drops to that bucket of ill will that we've been holding on to. And so understanding the drawbacks is very important. The Buddha also likened this mind of ill will to a sick person. A sick person. You know, when you're sick, you don't enjoy anything, right? Someone will bring you your favorite soup and you're like, I don't want it, doesn't taste good. People will try to get you to do something that you usually enjoy and you don't like it, you can't do it. You're sick, you don't feel good. This is that mind. You know, whenever we have a mind of ill will, hate, anger, we can't enjoy anything, right? We're actually pretty simple creatures. If we have a mind like that, then we don't have a mind of happiness. Yeah? When a mind of ill will is present, that's what we've got. We don't have a mind of kindness, of love. And the Buddha said these things, they cause problems for you. They cause problems for others. They obstruct wisdom. They cause vexation. They don't lead towards nibbana. And if we really understood this, if we actually understood that there's these drawbacks to these minds, these adinavas, these drawbacks, if we really understood this, then we would, if we had some wisdom, we would stop indulging in them. And that's why meditation is such a powerful opportunity for us. When we see these minds clearly, you see the enjoyment, what you thought was enjoyment. You see the drawbacks, the lack of peace. You see the way that you are developing your mind, inclining it to these unwholesome states over and over again. And if you've got some wisdom, you'll see the future of your mind full of hate, full of misery. So the Buddha taught mindfulness so that we could be aware of these things. The habit pattern of the mind is so strong that even if we see it, we still need to work harder on it. And sometimes in your meditation, you'll have this mind of ill will. You'll realize, the Buddha said this is akusala, this is bad. That this is a hindrance, a nivarana, a hindrance, a fetter, samyojana. I should let it go, you'll think. And sometimes in your meditation, you let it go and you see just what horrible thing you are holding on to. And you get peace. And the Buddha said that this is like that sick person. When they get better, they understand just how sick they were and how wonderful it is to be healthy again. Have you had that moment when you've been sick one day and then you kind of wake up the next day and you're like, oh gosh, I feel so much better, right? This is the same thing. So it's important to know when this mind is present. It's also really important to know when it's absent. When it's absent, we can really celebrate, we can be really happy and we can incline our mind to more wholesome states. And so the Buddha constantly was pointing out the drawbacks, the adinavas, the problems with these minds, these defilements of hate, ill will. And one of my favorite suttas, which I'll share with you now, is the Koda Sutta. It's an angry person or an irritable person. So this is, the Buddha, he's so clever. He when he spoke about these topics, he was really skillful. And in this sutta, he's talking about how if you get angry, you will please your enemy, right? But it doesn't start off like saying you should be pure and completely free of these things. It's like, no, the last thing you want to do is to make your enemy happy. Like, he's admitting we've got enemies, right? It's like saying, look, you've got people you don't like. The last thing you want to do is cause them to celebrate, right? And this sutra is in the Anguttara Nikaya 7s, number 7.64. And so the Buddha says there's 7 things that will please your enemy if you become angry. The first thing is you look ugly, right? Again, the Buddha's so clever, appealing to our vanity. You look ugly. Have you ever seen angry people? Yeah? They look like little demons, red in the face, contorted, their face completely twisted. You can almost see the steam coming out of their ears, right? They look like toddlers having a tantrum. This is what you look like when you're angry, right? Oh, how embarrassing. So the Buddha said, if your enemy sees you angry like this, then they'll be so happy, they'll be so pleased. And so, this is the first thing we should remember. Oh gosh, I don't want to get angry. I don't want to look ugly. The second is that you lose sleep. And this is what I was pointing to before, right? When you're angry, when you've got ill will bubbling, boiling inside of you, it's very energetic. It disturbs the mind. Maybe it thrusts into action our adrenal system, and all these hormones are racing through the body, right? Keeping us wired, awake. And you can't get any sleep. You lie there at night tossing and turning because of this ill will that you've generated in your mind. And then, of course, what happens when you don't get enough beauty sleep? You'll look even uglier the next day. The Buddha said that you do not profit. You don't gain from a mind of ill will. It's true, right? You can imagine doing something like, working in a shop, and if you're really irritable and grumpy, are your customers going to buy from you? Are you going to get money? Are you going to be able to get the things you want in your life? No. The enemy is going to be like, oh, may they lose everything, And this is the next thing he said. You actually lose wealth when you get angry. Yesterday we were talking about people getting irritable on the roads, right? Road rage, right? You get a fine. Maybe you go to jail. Maybe you have to pay compensation if you cut people off in traffic or whatever, right? You get a punishment. You lose wealth. Even worse, you'll lose your reputation, right? You'll lose your good reputation. People who are angry, irritable, grumpy, everyone knows it, right? Oh, Uncle John, he's always such a grump. People talk about you, right? People will spread your bad reputation. And you'll lose friends and family. No one wants to be around grumpy, irritable, angry people. No one. We know this, right? We don't want to be around people like that. They don't want to be around you when you're like that either. And lastly, the Buddha said, people who are angry, full of ill will, they go to a bad destination. And this is rebirth in a place of woe, an animal state or hell realm. And such a thing, of course, would please your enemy, right? All these things, the Buddha said, would please your enemy. And this was his skillful way of getting us to realize that, not only will it please our enemy, but it will actually displease us. We will become sad, lonely, if we continue with a mind of anger. And so, another story which just comes into my mind is from the Kakachupama Sutta, the simile of the saw. Most of you will know this, right? There's a very famous image of a two-handed saw chopping someone in half, and we're not supposed to give rise to any hate or ill will. That's pretty high standard, don't you think? And but one of the stories in this is the story of Kali the maid and Videhika, her mistress. Do you know this story? It's one of my favorite stories. It shows how we have to be so careful that unarisen anger or hate doesn't appear in our mind. So there's a maid, her name is Kali. She's a good worker, but as you'll hear, a bit of a troublemaker. She's a good worker. She does her job well. And because she does her job well, her mistress, Videhika, doesn't get angry at her. Or Kali thinks to herself, is it because she doesn't have any hate, any anger in her heart, that she doesn't get angry with me? Or just because I do my work well? Interesting. Why don't I test her? So you see, she's a bit of a troublemaker. So the next morning, she doesn't get up to do her jobs. And Videhika comes in and says, Kali, what are you doing? Get up. It's time to work. Why? Oh, no reason. And of course, she sees a flash, just a flash of ill will come into her mistress's mind. And Kali thinks, maybe she does have some ill will. Maybe it's not just because I do good work. And so she thinks I'll test her a little bit further. So the next morning she gets up later. And of course, the mistress gets even more angry. She really sees it. And Kali thinks, good. And tomorrow she tests her even further. She gets up even later. And that mistress gets really upset and she takes an object and she hits Kali over the head with it. Kali starts bleeding and out she goes into the village. See what she did, that kind, nice Videhika. See how she beat me. And of course, Videhika, who previously had a good reputation, has now lost her reputation, right? She's also lost the balance of her mind. That unarisen anger inside of her came out. That's us also, right? Everyone around us is our Kali, trying to make us angry. And if we're not careful, we're going to respond. And again, this is why meditation is so powerful for us. Because in meditation, we're not just practicing mindfulness, which is the awareness of things coming into our mind, the knowledge of what's going on here and now. We're also practicing samavayama, right effort. Do you know about right effort? Yeah? It's divided into 4 things. The first task in right effort, and it is a bit of an effort, right? We have to strive to overcome these minds of hate and ill will. The first right effort is to prevent unarisen, unwholesome states from appearing in our mind, right? We don't want these things to come into our mind. We want to prevent them from appearing. It's like, if you've got really strong mindfulness, you see over there that ill will sneaking up. And if you're not going to prevent it, it's going to come in. The analogy I've been using lately is there's a train pulling up. The train is going to Angry Town. Do you want to get on that train? Pulls up to your station. Do you get on, or do you just let it go past? And this is what happens. You see this in your meditation, right? You'll see the arising of something like ill will. You'll see it kind of popping up over there. And if you can see that, then you can deal with it straight away. Be like, no, I'm not getting on that train. I understand the drawbacks of this mind. I'm not letting it in. This is the first right effort, to prevent. The second right effort is if that sneaky hindrance of ill will has somehow got past your defenses, the next step is to abandon it, right? So perhaps some of you have been sitting in meditation and you've been a little bit lax with your mindfulness. You haven't been able to prevent that hindrance from arising. And suddenly you realize when your mindfulness returns, a good sign, you realize, I've been thinking about hating that person for the last 20 minutes. Wonderful. You realized, wonderful, your mindfulness has returned. Good. And you remember, the Buddha said this is bad. This is a hindrance. Now I need to abandon it. This is the second right effort, to abandon. Abandon the arisen unwholesome state. The next two of the right efforts are a bit more positive. We want to cultivate wholesome states that have not yet arisen in our mind. We want to bring in the good stuff, the joy, the happiness, the bliss, the love. We want to bring in the bojjhangas, the factors of enlightenment, mindfulness, investigation, energy. We want to bring in the piti sukha, the rapture, the bliss. We want to bring in the tranquility, the samadhi, the stillness, and the equanimity, the upekkha. So when we're cultivating these wholesome states, we're cultivating those beautiful bojjhangas, the factors that lead towards enlightenment. And then, of course, the last right effort, the difficult part, is to maintain those beautiful mind states. And those unwholesome mind states that we're trying to overcome, these are the hindrances. Many of you will know the hindrances, So we have sense desire, ill will, sloth and torpor, restlessness and remorse and doubt. I won't go into them now. I've been focusing on one of those hindrances, ill will. And so we need to prevent the unarisen ill will coming into our mind. Mindfulness, sense restraint, awareness. We need to abandon the arisen hindrance of ill will when it arises. And we do this through investigation, from understanding the drawbacks. We also perhaps might need to practice an antidote. Right? You've got ill will, it's a good time to practice some metta, some love, right? There's many skillful ways that we can abandon this mind state, but we have to have that desire firstly to do so. And that's some wisdom, right? Because remember, we enjoy that mind state too much. And so we need to learn how to abandon these things skillfully. And the last sutta I'll share with you, in a way that we can abandon, proof that we can abandon. Because remember, the Buddha wouldn't have asked us to if it was impossible, right? If it wasn't possible, we wouldn't have to worry about it, But because the Buddha said it is possible, we can abandon these mind states. And there's a sutta called the Lekha Sutta, which is in the Anguttara Nikaya 3s. And Lekha means inscription, an inscription. And so the Buddha is comparing people to inscriptions. So remember, I said it's normal, it's natural that these mind states will appear in your mind, right? It's normal, it's natural. You're human, right? These things come into your mind. Sometimes there's not a lot we can do about it, but there is something that we can do about responding, how we respond when it has arisen. And these images, these similes I'm about to share with you, are really good to remember, a very practical way of remembering it's possible to abandon these hindrances. And so the first kind of inscription, the first kind of person the Buddha talks about in the Lekha Sutta is an inscription drawn in stone, right? This is very permanent. We still go to ancient Egypt today, you can still see, go to modern day Egypt, you can still see ancient inscriptions, thousands of years old, carved into stone. And the Buddha said this is like a person who holds on to anger, to hate, to ill will. Very permanent, right? Really holds on to it. We love holding on to our anger. We love holding on to our ill will. We forget the drawbacks. Yeah? And so many people hold grudges, have so much resentment. People in this room, we too have been holding on to anger, holding on to hate for a very long time. So we're like that inscription drawn in the rock, right? So that's the first kind of inscription, the first kind of person. The second is an inscription drawn in the sand, yeah? So eventually this will get washed away by water or blown away by the wind. It stays for some time, but it's like a medium amount of time, right? It doesn't stay forever, and then you let it go. Better than that permanent inscription in the rock, right? Better than holding on for a long time. But the best kind of person is like a line drawn in the water. As soon as it appears, it vanishes. And this is how we can be too. We might experience that anger, that ill will arising. We might not be able to prevent it, but we have an opportunity to abandon it as quickly as it has arisen. We don't hold on to it. We don't want it in our mind. We don't want it to proliferate, to flood our mind with thoughts of ill will, thoughts of hate. We don't want to hold on to it so that it becomes resentment or grudge. We don't want to grow it and develop it into malevolence, cruelty. We want to protect our mind by letting it go as quickly as we can, so that we have freedom from this defilement. And so this is the way the Buddha taught, and this is my encouragement to you today. Remember, it's a long path to enlightenment. We're going to have anger and ill will. We're going to have hate rattling around our mind. It's up to you to work with it. It's our responsibility as spiritual practitioners not to ignore it, not to pretend it's not there, not to put on, your angel face, masking your your horrible self, right? It's there. Deal with it. When it arises, let it go. And so this is a short talk today about ill will, and I hope it will be of some benefit for you now or in the future. Are there any questions?
Thank you. The question and answer time, we will alternate between questions from the floor here and questions from your online. We start off with the question from the floor. Anyone would like to ask a question, please raise your arm. Going? If not, we go to the online question. No? Okay. Okay.
Morning. Good afternoon, Ajahn. Hello. I have a question about Sotapannas. I heard that one of the characteristics is being undoubtful.
Undoubtful.
Undoubtful. Can you undoubtful?
Mm.
No doubt. Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah.
Can you please explain more about that? Is that more towards no doubt for their faith in Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, or is that more towards not worrying about anything related to world desires?
Yeah, very good question. Yeah, sometimes we see these words and we're not sure what they mean, right? Like things like doubt. What is doubt? So when we talk about the hindrance of doubt as a nivarana, the hindrance of doubt is not just skeptical doubt about, what's the weather going to be like today? Is the cafe that I go to the best cafe? It's not this kind of like doubt about, these sorts of everyday matters. This is a kind of doubt about what is wholesome and what is unwholesome, what leads to freedom from suffering and what leads away from it. It's doubt about the path. And this is a real hindrance. This is a real problem for us because we don't know what to do. And it's incapacitating. You may have seen it in your meditation. Maybe some doubt arises about the nature of the practice that you're doing. Am I doing it right? Am I meant to be breathing long or short? Am I breathing loudly or softly? And suddenly you don't know what to do. The Buddha said that this hindrance doubt is like a bowl of water with mud in it, put in a dark place, right? You can't see clearly. You can't see into that water. You can't see your reflection because there's so much doubt. And he also likened it to a traveller lost in a desert who's sick and hot and unsure of the way. And this is us, right? Sometimes in our spiritual path, we don't know which way we're going. And so when it comes to the stage of Sotapanna, they have eradicated doubt because they have experiential confidence in the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. They have experiential confidence. So remember at the beginning of our session today, I was like, don't just chant these words as some sort of rite or ritual. Don't just tick it off. Understand the meaning of these things, because these are the things that you gain experiential confidence, understanding for yourself, wisdom for yourself. Otherwise, it's just like a bunch of text on the page, right? Otherwise, it's just a few words in the wind. When you understand it for yourself, this is wisdom, right? When you understand it for yourself. And so someone who has experiential understanding, experiential confidence in the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, they become a stream enterer because they have achieved what the Buddha said was possible. The Buddha discovered this path for himself, became the Buddha, taught the teaching out of compassion, the Dhamma, which leads other people to become enlightened too. That's the Arya Sangha. And that is, of course, people of stream entry and above. And so when you get to a stage of development, you actually see the truth of the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha for yourself. And so this is why they have no doubt. They know for themselves, this is the way I am going to attain Nibbana. The Buddha's path, as he outlined it, is true and correct. This is the result of goodness. If I keep on practicing like that, then I must attain Nibbana. And this is that experiential confidence. They see, they understand. And so remember the big perspective that the Buddha offered was the view he gave us, that he shared with us, is this, this horrible realm of samsara, which keeps us stuck in this cycle of going round, rebirth after rebirth after rebirth. This was what he saw. This is one of the jivas, the enlightenment knowledges that he had. And the same thing happens with the lower stages of enlightenment. We see more and more clearly in line with the Dhamma. And that's how that experiential understanding, the Buddha was right. Taught this Dhamma which leads to enlightenment. And the example that we have really, the early example is someone like Kondanya, who was the Buddha's first test subject. Like Kondanya heard the Buddha talking in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, the Buddha's first sermon, and attained a stage of awakening. And the Buddha was like, he's got it. And this is how the Buddha had the confidence that he could teach the Dhamma, that people could realize it for themselves. And this is why we are so fortunate, right? The Buddha taught, because if we think about the appeal of Sakka, that God who said to Buddha, please teach out of compassion. There are beings with little dust in their eyes. We are those beings with little dust. You are, right? You're the ones most likely to attain these stages of awakening. You should have some happiness, right? Some confidence. It's possible. And this might help you, right, to know that there is a time when that faith that you have becomes confirmed. And in a way, as we progress, as we keep practicing, our saddha, our confidence, our faith is increasing, is deepening, is growing. And one day, just like that pot, I talked about before, that pot of hate gets filled up, same with our saddha and all of the spiritual faculties, the indriyas, the balas. These things get filled up. And one day, that faith that you have becomes experiential confidence of the deepest sort, unshakable confidence. And that's that kind of confidence that a Sotapanna has, right? So take that little bit of confidence that you have in the path, and keep on growing it, keep on developing it, keep on inquiring, keep on developing your mind. And it's natural, it's normal, it's a process, it's inevitable that one day we must get there. And so that's the saddha that is gained by a Sotapanna, that unshakable confidence, understanding the truth of the Buddha, the Dhamma and the Sangha.
Thank you, Bhante. We have an online question. Ajahn Brahm explained in a book that the hindrance of ill will can also be directed towards the meditation session. What advice can you give us to overcome that particular form of ill will?
Kanti paramang tapotitika. Patience is the highest austerity, right? Patience is an antidote to ill will, right? If you just wait long enough, it'll change. And there's a kind of meditation joke, which is if you don't like meditation, you can just sit there and do nothing, right? So the ill will that arises in meditation is usually like aversion. It's aversion to the discomfort of having a body. It arises because of a lack of awareness, inferiority of awareness. It means that your mindfulness has lapsed. You've lost the subject of your meditation and you've allowed that ill will to come in, and now that is the only occupation your mind has. And so, we do at times develop some aversion, some irritability in our meditation. So this is a really good opportunity. Investigate it. What does it look like to have a mind of ill will? It's horrible. That mind of aversion, that irritability you have towards just sitting there until the bell goes. Please, will the bell go soon? Please, why isn't the bell going? Like, this is an opportunity for you to learn, right? This is why we do meditation. We want to see what's going on. That's your mind. That's the kind of mind you have. That's the kind of mind you're creating moment by moment. This mind of ill will, that's something to learn from, right? So if you see this coming up in your meditation, good. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to hold on to it? Are you going to see that little fire of ill will and think, I know, I'll just keep on pouring the petrol on. See if that helps, right? Is it going to help? No. So you need to have some understanding of those drawbacks. So when you see it arise in your mind, it's really wonderful. It's so good. You've got some mindfulness, right? You're making progress on the path. And I say that, I don't mean that to sound flippant, because you have begun working on your mind. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. You are in the process of training your mind. And it's a messy process. It's a distressing process. It's like toilet training a dog. At first, doesn't always go well. You've got to clean up a lot of stuff. And it's messy, it's stinky, it's sticky. And it takes time. But through the training of the mind, that's how you make progress. Doesn't go away by ignoring it, doesn't go away by being in denial, pretending it's not there. It doesn't go away just merely by looking at it. It goes away by understanding it, and through wisdom, understanding this mind leads to misery for me, misery for others. You understand the drawbacks. If you're wise, understanding the drawbacks, it will disappear, because that's the power of wisdom, and that's how we train our mind over and over and over and over and over again. And that's why I say we're so lucky. We're so lucky, you're so fortunate to have experienced the teachings. These teachings will change your life. They will purify your mind. You are so fortunate. You are beings with little dust in your mind. There are so many billions of people in the world who are not in this room coming to work on their mind, right? There's so many billions of people in this world it will never occur to them that they can work on their minds. So if you see this ill will come up in your meditation, wonderful, you're already meditating, right? Great. Yeah, you're working in your mind, you're training your mind. And this is what the mind looks like. So if you see ill will come up in your mind, keep going, keep moving forward on the path.
Thank you, Bhante. It's already 10:45. If you have any further questions, please feel free to go to Vihara after lunch. Bhante will be there. You can ask further questions. Can we request Bhante to lead us to pay respect to the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha?
Very good.
Yeah, and then we can please go next door to join us for the community lunch.
Araham Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho Sanghang Namami. Very good. So nice to be with you today. Yeah, much happiness and much merit to you all.
Thank you, Bhante.